Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey always reigns supreme. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, let's drop the puck and get this party started.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Night in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Monday, February 19th, 2024. Coming to you live from Florida Media in Rockville Center. Another big show coming up for you tonight. Mr. Brian Compton of NHL.com will be joining us to talk all about the Isles, the Stadium Series, everything that's been going on. My name is Sean Cuthbert. With me as always is Mr. Stefen Rosner. Stefen, how you doing?
I'm doing great. My girlfriend got me new shoes for Valentine's Day, so showing them off here. Thank you, Alyssa. I love you here. They're really comfortable.
Very nice. How come they're not red, though, for Valentine's Day?
That's a very good point. I think I overdo with the red. It was time to do a color change. Red's my go-to color.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so but the
so
blue,
much about you.
The blue is clean, so thank you, Alyssa.
It's fresh. Very nice. Well done.
Yeah.
Well done. So before we dive into everything, I want to remind you we're very proud to be sponsored by Blue Line Deli and Bagels, located at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington and 217 Carlton Avenue in East Islip. Check out the menu at BlueLineDeli.com. Also proud to be sponsored by Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd and unplug your game at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Also happy to be sponsored by Razor and Kniff Attorneys at Law, ready to fight for you. Check them out at razorandkniff.com. That's RAISERAND. KENNIFF.com for a free consultation. And happy to be sponsored by A1 VIP Entertainment, your one-stop entertainment concierge for sports, concerts, Broadway, and more. One call does it all at 516-787-0048. And remember, folks, for all you guys in the chat and gals, remember to put questions brewing before any questions you have for us for later in the show. We will get to them, and we'll chat a little bit about the Islanders and hockey in general. So with that out of the way, Stefen Rosner, yesterday, a big celebration. The weekend, a big celebration for outdoor NHL hockey, but for the New York Islanders, pretty tragic the way that game went. They looked good, and how many times have we heard this? The Islanders have opened up a lead and blew a lead and ultimately ended up not getting 2 points in the game. So we will talk all about that. We'll even talk about the forgotten game against the Seattle Kraken. It feels like it was ages ago just because of all the build-up to the stadium game yesterday and all the hoopla behind it. But another rough week. It was only 2 games, but you get shootout loss against Seattle. You get an overtime loss, obviously, against the Rangers. They pick up 2 out of a possible 4 points. Everybody knows how desperate this team is now for points in the standings with the way things are going. So let's dive into it. Let's start in Seattle, and then obviously we'll open it up into the big game yesterday against the Rangers. Yeah,
so before we touch on Seattle, we look at the Calgary game and how compete was a major issue.
Right.
They go into Seattle game where it still seemed at times it wasn't great. That's a tight game. That was a fun game. Obviously, it's a tie game there, 1-1. But then they go into the shootout, and the Islanders, again, just struggle to score in shootouts. Barzal suffers a minor injury in that game. He ends up playing the entire overtime, plays a shootout, last guy to shoot in the shootout, but then misses a couple of days of practice, things like that. But the Islanders avoid trouble with him. But look at that game, and it's another situation where Philip Grubauer is in between the pipes. His first game in over 2 months. You want to get traffic in front. You want to get shots.
December 1st, I think, was his last game.
Something like that. It was a long time. And the Islanders, again, he made a couple of key stops early, but when you're facing a goal that hasn't played in that amount of time, you got to get shots. You got to get traffic in front, make his life difficult. And you got to credit Seattle, kept him to the outside, did some good things there. Mm-hmm. But just not good enough in key moments for them. Again, they go to overtime, they go to shootout, they get a point, but Seattle isn't this amazing team, and especially how Calgary went, how Calgary's game went, and where compete was a major issue. Excuse me. You had to see more, and you didn't. Again, they get 1 point, and then it was okay. They got a lot of time now to focus on the outdoor game. 6 straight days of practice.
Right, a little mini camp for Patrick Waugh.
We had some bag skating at certain practices. It was all about fundamentals that week with him, and it was intense. It really was intense. It was, again, going back to basics is they went through line rushes 20 or 30 times. They went through 2-on-1s, 3-on-2s, breakouts, neutral zones, bag skate again. It was like boot camp. And we said that when Waugh first got here, but this week was intense. They weren't long skates, but they were clearly like, hey, we're not going to focus on a lot of other things. Basics. Because this was the Islanders team all year long.
And high intensity.
And under Lane, really, just fundamentals went out the window. And I was talking to Zekas, and I asked him, I said, just what happened after Trotz left? And you saw that he was going to, he didn't want to throw anyone under the bus and things like that. And he's a great teammate. He's not going to do that. But he said, you know what? Sometimes you just need a new voice. Things get stale or whatever. And clearly Waz come in and really help the quote-unquote energy despite those last 2 games where compete was an issue. But when it comes down to fundamentals, he has to break them down, break all of the old habits. He said the biggest habit that he's had to break so far, and the hardest one to break, is getting the defense to be mobile. Because under Barry, and even under Lane, they don't want to leave the front of the net. That whole shell thing where they collapse.
Right.
They just try to protect the front of the house. Like, he wants them going into the corners. He wants them taking the puck up. Things like that. But these guys, for years, were told to stop doing that. And now he's trying to do that. And, it's piece by piece with these habits, but there's too many habits to break right now, and you're seeing it's still becoming a factor in these losses.
Yeah, I mean, you would hope that 6 days that Patrick Waugh had to practice with these guys to kind of get them to really embed his systems into their brains, right? And for the first 50 minutes of yesterday's game, it looked like that's what was happening. But, we've also talked about how many 50-minute games they played under Lambert, right? Where it looked like they were in control, and the wheels fall off the bus for some reason. And they're finding different ways to do it because, now you have a Patrick Waugh team who's not only up there in shots, but sometimes dominating teams in shots. They're pushing 35, 40 shots a game nearly now with Patrick Waugh, and we saw that again against the Rangers. And so you're happy with the fact that they're obviously driving more play, more puck possession. They're putting goals in the net early like they did with Lambert, but it looked like, things might bank a different way. And then all of a sudden, you get to that third period, and it was almost like a classic Lambert third period in the sense that, once again, now maybe they didn't strategically try to go into a shell, but I mean, they were getting shelled by the Rangers. Where
so what happens when you take penalties.
Yes, and we are certainly going to get into that. But it's just, you have the big stage, you have all the fans out there. It's a big event. Everybody's having a good time, and Islander fans are having a great time. And maybe, in the back of your head, you're starting to get a little nervous. That 4-2 goal comes, and then you're like, uh-oh, but it's Patrick Waugh now. Well, this is going to go differently. It's going to be different. You're still probably feeling good. And then once it gets to 4-3, that's probably when the real nerves came in. And
then Romanov scores.
Right, and then you're like, here we go. Here's the difference, right? They're able to battle back and get that goal that they really didn't get under Lane Lambert. So you're feeling a little bit better again. Then penalty trouble comes, and just a dismal penalty kill for the season. But I mean, it was just totally, came out in spades yesterday against the Rangers, and obviously it did them in. But just a reoccurring nightmare for the Islanders and their fans with these now 15 blown leads throughout the season, and just points that you couldn't give them away earlier, but you really can't give them away now. And, even though the Rangers are a team long gone from chasing them in the standings, it still would have been a big 2 points, not only obviously for the Isles in the standings, but for the fans, for the team themselves. It would have been a huge boost of confidence to win that game against the Rangers in the setting that it was, and it completely blows up in their face, and here we are.
Does it count as a day game since it was delayed?
I mean, it was still technically, it was late day.
Late day.
Right? It was like 4:30.
So we count that towards
early
the
evening.
record.
It was still, yeah. Yes.
Okay, that's what,
Absolutely.
I want to talk about the first period, because that was the most important first period for me under Waugh, because he's talked so much, and I really thought this was the storyline. For me, for .com, they wanted me to write a sidebar story, the story within the story, and I was like, this is perfect. Waugh's talked so much about how he watched the Islanders film before he got there, and that one bad shift turned into one bad period, which turned into one bad game. And he kept saying, I'm trying to get into their mind that one bad shift does not mean one bad period, does not mean one bad game. And they give up. They start off pretty strong, a couple of shots early. I think Lee had a couple. They got the first goal early. And you said, okay, 2 ways this game could go immediately. Islanders get shelled, and they go down 1-0, and that's it. Or they keep their heads up, and they go back and give it to the Rangers, and they go down. Then they tie it. Then they go 2-1. Then it's 3-1. You're thinking, wow, Waugh have been preaching this, that one bad shift where they allow that goal can't define their period. And they have a fantastic end to that first period.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, we're seeing it before our eyes right now. This mental hurdle that they've struggled with all year, Waugh finally got through to them right there in that moment. I said, this is amazing. Just play the way they played to start in the first period.
Of course.
And this game, everything about this game going forward, when they win the game, it's a game changer for just mindset mentally, is that, look, we proved it to ourselves. One bad shift's not going to define us. And the goals they were scoring were great goals off the rush. Shesterkin was looking terrible. And then they allowed Shesterkin to get into the game. And that save that he makes on Engvall, which to me, it's flashy glove save, and I'm a goalie, so you love that stuff. But to me, that save with the crowd cheering, going nuts for that.
Yeah.
Definitely Shesterkin felt that, and he was fantastic as that game went on there because, again, if the Islanders keep going and score another 2 goals, maybe early in the second, things like that, you're thinking he might get pulled.
Sure.
And I thought they were doing the right things in the first, and then it just, again, they didn't get complacent. They kept battling, but the Rangers are a good team for a reason.
Yeah.
They're going to push. Everyone always talks about how you got to play a full. No team in the NHL ever plays a full 60 because there's that buffer period where the other team's going to push, and you just have to survive.
Teams are too good enough to where there's going to be ebbs and flows, where a team is eventually going to capture some momentum, even if it's a minimal amount of time.
And then again, the Islanders just allowed the Rangers a little too much time to get traffic in front. Guys getting behind the D, mistakes being made, and then I guess you might as well get to the penalty kill now because it was the moral of the story here. I mean, Scott Mayfield takes 3 penalties in the game. I guess we'll talk about him after the PK as a whole, but PK was 2 for 5. You are going to have a very hard time winning the NHL. 1, when you take 5 penalties, and 2, when your PK only stops 2 of them. Holmstrom gets taken off the penalty kill. So again, last year we talked a lot about how the power play was so bad and no changes were made till game 2 of the playoffs. And it was like, how do you keep... it's one thing if the power play was so good.
Thing out there night after night.
If the power play was so good in the regular season and just wasn't working early in the playoffs, then it's like, you know what? Those guys have already proven they could do it.
Yeah, you give them a shot. You give me, yeah.
The power play was so bad last year, no changes were made. You're thinking, how is this allowed?
Right.
This year, the penalty kill has been this bad, and there's been no changes until yesterday. Nelson doesn't get any PK time. 70.7% on the year. That's the worst in the NHL. Under Lambert, it was 73%. Under Waugh, 59.3%, 16 for 27.
Oh my God.
Under Benoit, since Benoit's coming to help the penalty kill, and 6 for 12, 50%. You are not going to win hockey games when that's the case. And we've talked so much. Let's say the penalty kill has been perfect in all of these games. You're putting, for 5 kills last night, that means Barzal's not seeing the ice for, let's say no one scores. They're perfect. 10 minutes.
Yeah. 1/6 of a game, stuff.
That's good math. I can't do that.
Thank you.
But you're ruining the opportunity for your best players to be out there. Now, listen, Horvat's on the penalty kill at times. Maybe you have strong defensemen on the penalty kill as well, and they'd play that either way. But Barzal is your best player under Patrick Waugh. You need him on the ice. Patrick Waugh's been playing him like 25 minutes a night.
Yeah.
You can't do it unless now you maybe that's something they think about is putting Barzal on the kill. I had asked Lambert about that, and he said that they don't want to. Essentially, I don't remember exactly what he said. It's been a while ago. But he said that, he doesn't really want Barzal being put in spots to block shots, things like that. But with the guys right now on the penalty kill not getting the job done, you got to find... listen, maybe Barzal gets more shorthanded chance. If he's not going to play and it's going to limit his ice time, he's got to be out there. Maybe you think about, Scott Mayfield struggling, right? 5-5, he's looked a little better as of late, him and Riley. But when your best penalty killers are in the box, you can't have that. That was like last year when Zizekias was in the box so much. It's great that he's your number 1 penalty killer. Can't do it from inside the penalty box.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's just something that's been burying this team time after time. But, it's not just the penalty kill. They should know that they got to stay out of the box simply because of how much they've struggled, right? Like that should just be in the back of their minds. Rule of thumb, don't take penalties. But the New York Islanders, we shouldn't be taking penalties because we can't keep the puck out of the damn net when we do, right? And yet... You have yesterday, and I know everybody has been on Mayfield because he took 3 penalties, and of course, especially in critical situations late in the game, which ultimately allowed the Rangers and their strong power play to come back and ultimately win this game, right? But, another guy I gotta, pick up, have a bone to pick with is Matt Barzal. And I've brought his name up when it comes to this in the past, and I don't think he deserves a pass here because it happens time and time again, whether it's in a crucial situation like yesterday or even just in the middle of a game when, they go up a man, 15 seconds in, he's taking an offensive zone penalty, and it's the same thing. It's always stick work. It's either a high stick,
for everyone,
a hook.
Usually.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
But yesterday, he takes a hooking penalty, and I'm watching from, yards away in the football stadium, but I see it and I'm like, what is this guy doing? And you get some fans going, how do you call that? And I'm like, no, that's a hook.
By definition,
you can't take that penalty.
That is the definition of a hook. And they're going to always call that too.
Yeah, and maybe some nights they don't, but don't give the refs the opportunity to, especially in a marquee game like that, in a huge game, just keep your stick down. And I think, Matt Barzal kind of needs to be held accountable a little bit here because, yes, he's the team star. He's the guy that drives the offense. And ultimately, he's a guy who's going to carry this team on his shoulders to help them win games. But, there's also a disciplinary, portion of the game, too, where you have to know how to play this game responsibly. And he's long enough in his career now, well into this season enough now, and also to have the tape, to have the examples to see. I'm sure Lane Lambert and Patrick Waugh have been like, Matt, stop doing that. Please stop doing that.
Bad.
Yeah, exactly. Matt, bad. You know what I mean? And so he knows it. And, and sometimes you see him giving out to the ref and complaining about it stuff. You know what they're going to call. You've been in this league long enough, and you're fast enough where you shouldn't even have to hook these guys. He should be able to keep pace with these guys. Usually it's when you're getting outpaced by somebody, and, you're doing that last gasp effort to try to stop somebody. And sure, that's going to happen in the the nature of the game sometimes, but you got to be responsible with your stick. And Matt Barzal now has just been a guy who time and time again who's really hurt this team with these penalties, especially because of how poor the penalty kill is.
Yeah, and you made a great point about stop giving the other team power plays, right? The penalty kill, let's say the penalty kill was good this year. You could still argue the team is putting the PK in situations the same way with Sorokin, where, hey, late in the third period, you have to be perfect. They're putting them in spots, and again, 5 times going on the PK. Let's say no one on the PK goes into the box. You're wearing that group down. You're wearing both penalty kills down to the point where when you need them to come up in a big moment, they're gassed. Same way for Sorokin, when you allow 35 shots through 2.5 periods, and late in the game he allows a soft goal. He's being killed out there.
And that PK, it didn't end up in a goal right away, but that PK for the Barzal penalty, they couldn't clear the zone for the 2 minutes.
Yeah.
That 4-on-3, they were in their own zone. I mean, they could not save their lives with a clear from the puck. And I know this has been a recurring, issue for the Islanders pre and post Patrick Waugh, but I mean, they had a couple of opportunities there where they could just sail the puck out, and they couldn't do it or end up burying him. Now, I don't think that was late enough in the game where the Rangers didn't have the goalie pulled on that situation, right?
No, so you're talking about when Clutterbuck tried to clear it, that one?
I'm talking, yes. There was one point later on where you actually had an attempt at the empty net, and God forbid that goes in. They still don't have an empty net goal, but that could have sealed the game right there.
One, I think it was Clutterbuck. One that looked like it was going in from our angle, and two,
right.
That is I forgot which defenseman it was, but that is, you could blame Clutterbuck at times. Remember that turnover against, was it Colorado that he turned it over? I forgot what game it was.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, though.
That can't happen. Like, I don't blame. That's a ridiculous play. Yeah.
And in fact, I was happy to see somebody going for the empty net, to be perfectly honest with you. But it would have, a little luck, and you have it banked the right way. And we're not having this discussion right now. We're probably having it in a week or two about another bad penalty kill or whatever.
And I forgot, someone else chipped it up. They not iced it. Or maybe it was on the penalty kill because they sent one down with the empty net. I forgot what it was, but yeah, again, they don't have one. That's how many games would they have not blown the lead in if they get the empty net?
Stefen, it's just been a recurring issue for this team, and I'm sure Lane Lambert pulls some of his own hair out, and I'm sure Patrick Waugh is starting to with the way these games are going. But for whatever reason, this team, and again, if it's mental, if it's a systems thing, for whatever reason, this team just struggles when it comes to just defending the house and outward when they're holding on to a lead late into a game. And I mean, we see it again yesterday, and it's just, mind-boggling. It's just like you get this late into a season where you're less than 30 games away from the end of the year, and it's what's it going to take for this team to learn how to, successfully defend a lead in a third period, especially a team that used to know how to do it when you have 80% of the team that was under Barry Trotz, and all of a sudden it just goes by the wayside. It's just hard to figure out.
There really needs to be a study. I don't know if it's this year or in a couple
right.
of just like post Trotz. What happened? Like in 30 years, I'd do like ESPN 30 for 30 on
right.
Because clearly,
the aftermath.
Because like right after Trotz left, immediately after Trotz left, the team's fundamental, like it was, maybe it's accountability. But at the end of the day, forget about accountability. Like it's basic plays that aren't being made. I guess we'll get to overtime. Discuss that with Noah Dobson there. Great game, 3 assists, reaches the 50 assist mark. He finishes with more than, obviously. First player with 50 or more assists since Potvin did it in 54 or fewer games. He was having a great game, and then in overtime, tries to go up the middle. Or tries to go across the zone, and we're all taught you never do that. But even Waugh talking about it after the game, because my mindset is, if you're going to chip it out, go up the boards. But for Dobson, he had 2 plays. One, if he holds the puck, Panarin's circling back and leaving the zone. I don't think he's... And number 2, which is what Waugh said I want him to do, is skate it up.
The only little bit of, I guess, leeway I'll give Dobson on the play is that he aired the puck. So he thought, what are the chances of him knocking the puck out of the air? He took the gamble. Obviously, it
would have been an odd man rush, probably.
Blew up in his face. Now, if that had been on the ice and you had Panarin, then you're like, what are you thinking? Of course. Still the wrong play to make. But again, the slightest bit of leeway is, what are the chances that Panarin's going to get a stick in the air on it? And he does. And obviously it completely ends in a disaster. But, but at that point, like, are we really even going to get on Dobson for that play after everything that preceded
it? Should never have gotten
exactly. It never should have gotten to that point. And I turned to my buddy that I was sitting to watching the game. And after the regulation ended, I said, as an objective hockey fan, I would bet my estate that the Rangers are going to win this game in overtime. I mean, just no question about it. It only took 10 seconds.
I say, did you bet that it would be reviewed?
Seeing it in real time, it was tough to see. But once they put the replay up, I was like, oh, that's a goal. That's going to count. No question.
The insult to injury is that Dobson kind of bailed himself out because he got back and
he made the block.
The shot.
Right. And then it was clown show. It just went off of him, off the smoke, and in the net.
Going into the room, because questions have to be asked. Like, of course.
Man.
And you just, the emotion. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, I wasn't. I had to do a story on Dobson, and I would have had to ask it. Fortunately, somebody else asked it for me and asked what happened. He goes, "It's pretty self-explanatory, isn't it?" Like, of course, he's not going to be in the mood to talk about it.
Right.
And it's just tough because then I went, my stories about how good he's been this year, and all of his teammates said, he's a force on our back and he's a leader in the locker room. Like, they were hyping him up, which they should. He had a fantastic game.
Yeah.
And again, it should never have gone to that point. But let's get to some positives. How was the tailgate?
Well, I'm going to talk about that later because, look, we got BCom coming on at 8:30. So let's get through what's on tap, and I'll tell you all about the tailgate during Here of the Week, all right?
Yeah.
It's time for What's on Tap, brought to you by A1 VIP Entertainment.
That's right, folks. Let's take a look at what's on tap. Busy week for the Islanders. 4 games. They head into Pittsburgh tomorrow night. A team that's fading in the standings now, probably out of it at this point unless they go on a big run. But another team, I guess you look at like Calgary, like Seattle, that you can't overlook. Obviously, they got a bomb squad there with Sidney Crosby, all the stars. We all know who they are. But this is a game where, if the Islanders are going to look past a crushing loss yesterday, because, look, yesterday could be a turning point for this season. I was looking at it before the game as a potential jumping point to go on a run. You beat the Rangers, good team on a big stage, and then all of a sudden you go on a big run towards the playoffs, right? Now you get a point in an embarrassing loss in front of 80,000 people on a national stage, and you got to suck it up 2 days later and play against the Pittsburgh Penguins in Pittsburgh. So this is a game where we'll see how good this team is at bouncing back after a loss like that. And if they grab 2 points. Maybe you look at it as, maybe this team still has a shot, because I'm sure there's a lot of fans in Islander country right now that aren't too positive about their proposition of making the playoffs at this point.
Yeah, when we have Compton on, we'll talk about Brock Nelson, because he's the one that asked the question that got the response that we will get to in a little bit. But Brock Nelson pretty much said that every next game for us is a must-win, is the biggest game of the year, which is obviously true. Ironically, going into the game, I think Ethan Sears posted, the Islanders' record was the exact same as it was a year ago.
Even now, after yesterday?
The points.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I saw that like a week ago.
Yeah, maybe it's a week. Who knows? But you look at this week, it's monumental to get a 2 points now. You have to, because you're already on a 3-game skid. You lose another one, that's math 4. And again, we talk about the power play penalty kill. Like, Pittsburgh's power play has been terrible. They thought getting Erik Karlsson would unlock something. I don't know what they were.
So we'll find out what's worse.
Well, that's the thing.
the Penguins power play.
You don't want to get one. You don't want to give them power plays in general, because Crosby's Crosby. But against the Islanders penalty kill, a bad
all
power play. This
Stefen.
is the time for that power play to shine. And again, the Penguins are a team that aren't going anywhere, and the Islanders obviously are a team that thinks they're making the playoffs or want to. But they play the way they play that first period against any team outside of that first mistake. Excuse me. You're going to win, and it's just, you can't take your foot off the gas. And Waz said all the time that when we have a lead, we're going for the kill. And they tried yesterday. The problem is when you're on the PK, how much can you go for the kill? You can't. Well, you go for the penalty kill. They don't want to do that. But
true. Yes.
Against Pittsburgh, after the losses they had, especially that loss, a loss in any shape or form of not 2 points tomorrow is going to be just horrific. What you said, that turning point every game now. You kind of start saying, all right, they're the likelihood of making the playoffs now. If we're losing to the Penguins who are behind, if you're not going to beat the teams in front of you,
it's over
or near you,
point.
you lose to the teams behind you, you're in trouble.
Yeah, for sure. So that's a big game they got to win. Let's flash through the rest here. Thursday they go into St. Louis. They got the second wild card right now in the West. Robert Thomas leading the way over there. Good team, good solid team in the West there. Another tough test.
They've lost 2 straight.
Didn't know that because I didn't look.
Yep, I looked. They lost 2 straight.
I looked at the stats and I saw Rob Thomas.
Yeah, Rob Thomas. No, he's been good. Kyrou, since getting booed by the fans, has been good. I don't know what you just did. Jordan Binnington.
You know Matchbox 20, buddy?
I do, but not like that. Jordan Binnington, who I just cannot stand. But he's been good. look at this team, and the Blues are
Blues
weird.
cannon.
The teams it's been a solid team. They've had some issues this year for sure, but again, you're going to their building first off. Last year when they were in their building was when Binnington shoved Sorokin. Do you remember that? They were leaving between the second.
Forgot about that.
I think it was the end of the second period, and Binnington gave him the nudge.
Mm-hmm.
I think Brock. There was also some other stuff that happened in that game with Binnington. If you get under his skin, he's not one of those goalies that could do two things at once. He either is going to make really good saves or he's going to be a loose cannon and try to fight you. There's other goalies that have been able to do that where they're really, really good and can do that.
Sure.
A la Billy Smith. That is not Binnington. So if they get bodies in front, make his life hard, piss him off, you're probably going to win the game. The fact is, the Islanders haven't done a great job of going to the net and crashing the net and getting traffic in front. And you allow the Blues to find their game. You allow Binghamton to get his ego as high as possible. You're going to have issues. And again, it's in their building. They've played well. But again, with all the losses they've had, you got to steal points now. You got to see Sorokin steal you games. Whoever's in goals got to steal you games. You got to stay out of the box. And this is for every team we're going to talk about for the rest of the season. You have to, until the PK proves to the team that they could come up clutch, you got to make sure they are a non-factor in these games.
Yeah, no question about it. Now let's round out the week. I believe I said 4 games. It's actually 3. Saturday, Tampa comes to town, afternoon game. They got the first wild card spot now in the East. Isles are currently 7 points back, but they do have 2 games in hand. So another huge game. We know what happened the last time. That was actually one of the Islanders' better games under Patrick Waugh. You'd probably say the best one. 6-2 win there. But again, another team with a lot of veterans, a lot of firepower, recent Stanley Cup champions. So another tough test.
Yes, and it's a team that knows what just happened to them against the Islanders in the same building.
Yes,
it was a second of a back-to-back. I'm not sure I don't think they are playing a second of a back-to-back again. It'll probably be Vasilevsky, who got lit, up the other day. Lit up. Doesn't happen often. So I think for the Islanders, it's, don't think you won 6-2 and that's going to happen again. If Johansson's in goal, they know how to beat him. Just shoot the puck on net. No offense. Well, I guess it doesn't matter, but he doesn't stop pucks. That's been his biggest issue, and to be an NHL goalie, you have to do that.
This is true. This is
but
a
if
fact.
they do face Vasilevsky, they've beaten them before. They've played him in the playoffs. They know where to shoot on him. You just got to, again,
familiar.
You can't sit back. If you start the game slow, Tampa's too talented. They have speed. They will destroy you. But if you take it to them early and you limit their top 6 from getting out of the zone and you wear them down, I mean, they don't have Sergachev. He's hurt. He's out for the rest of the regular season, probably the entirety of the playoffs. That team has been a shell of what they've been in years past. Again, the fact that they're a wild card team tells you a lot.
Yeah.
So they've been inconsistent. And the Islanders, again, have already beaten them by a big margin. They do what they did against them last time. They'll have no problem. But they can't sit back at all in that game. Especially, we'll see what happens this week. They're gonna have 2 days off. Thursday they play St. Louis. They'll have a day to relax, and they host them a day game. And the Islanders have been notorious for being bad during the day, so they got to put that behind them. They play a lot of day games coming up. They play the Rangers on St. Patrick's Day. Day game in MSG. That'll be a fun one. After playing a day game the day before. So yeah, they got to start finding ways to end this slump during the day, and against Tampa at home after beating them 6-2, it'd probably be a good day to do it.
Very good day. So no doubt another important week for the Islanders. As Brock Nelson alluded to, every week now is important for the Islanders, and it's got to start tomorrow with Pittsburgh. But before we wrap up with what's on tap, I'm going to tell you what's on tap with A1 VIP Entertainment featured events, starting with Friday, March 22nd, Fall Out Boy at MSG. Then we move on to Saturday, March 30th, and Sunday, March 31st. Zach Bryan will be performing at UBS Arena. Exciting stuff there. And A1 VIP Entertainment is also offering listeners and viewers of Hockey Night in New York an Isles playoff push package. Buy 4 games and get a 5th game for free for home games at UBS Arena. Call 516-787-0048. Mention Hockey Night in New York for 10% off. Featured events, one call does it all. 516-787-0048. And with that, we're going to take a quick break. Brian Compton will be joining us. We'll be back.
I don't want to hear it. It's over. I can't believe they fell short again.
Yeah, but they played so well. They made it to the semifinals 2 years in a row.
The semifinals aren't the cup. God damn it, I hate those Lightning.
They'll get another shot at it next year.
I don't even want to talk about it anymore, all right? They lost, okay? Let me just sit here and enjoy the one thing that makes me a little bit happy. This fresh, delicious, tasty, meaty, turkey-filled Blue Line Combo. I eat 3 every day to help keep me strong.
Hey, Donnie, can I have one of those?
Coming right up. Talk talk about a blast from the Blue Line.
Blue Line Deli and Bagels. Our goal is to make you a hero.
Attention all artists, storytellers, and creators of all kinds. It's time to make your content stand out above the rest, and Floored Media is the place to make your visions become a reality. Maybe you want to elevate your podcast and add some video, or turn that novel you wrote into an audiobook, or maybe you just need the right space to produce your daily vlog. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, Floored Media has the professional facilities, exceptional staff, and intimate atmosphere to breathe life into your creative passions at every step of the process.
Thanks for giving some time to our sponsors. Ready to talk more Isles? The train rolls on, right here on Hockey Night in New York.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for On the Line, featuring Mr. Brian Compton of NHL.com. Brian, how you been, buddy? Great to have you back on the show.
Good to see you, fellas. How you doing?
Doing all right. Talking about the crushing defeat that the Islanders suffered at the hands of the New York Rangers in MetLife Stadium yesterday, and I thought I would start by asking you, can the Islanders recover from such a defeat yesterday and still get in to the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs?
I mean, the calendar says yes. The standings say yes, but judging by Steph was in there too. Judging by Brock Nelson's reaction, fellas, I don't know. I don't know if the belief is there. At least not right now. That was really, really devastating, as you said, to have a 4-1 lead and to let it slip away like that. This is going to be a tough one to overcome. The good news is they're playing a Penguins team tomorrow that is really struggling as well and trying to find its way, especially offensively, which doesn't make any sense given all the firepower that they have. But the Islanders are really going to have to figure out a way to string some wins together, like Brock said last night.
Yeah, you talk about Brock Nelson. I guess if you could just describe to listeners just his reaction. We heard the audio clips, things like that, but if you could just take us through. I know you're the one that asked the question to him. I've never seen Brock look the way he looked last night.
Never. It kind of went like this. Yeah, I mean, it was really not just Brock. I don't think I've ever seen, at least in the last, since Barry took over, which was 2018. I haven't seen a reaction from an Islander like that in at least that long. So, again, this is going to be awfully tough. You have a new coach who's trying to instill his own philosophies and systems, etc. And, Steph's watched them more closely than I have for sure. This doesn't even seem like the same Ilya Sorokin that we've been accustomed to in the past. So there's just a lot of question marks over these next 28 games. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I guess, it's just something that sent shockwaves through the league, and we've kind of been getting everybody's reaction to it, so we might as well get yours too. But, Patrick Waugh coming in to take over this team. They're at a 500 record with him. Obviously, you give him a little bit of rope here to instill his system, doing it on the fly. We just talked about how they had pretty much a 6-game mini camp of practices in between, their last game leading up to yesterday. But maybe you can just talk about your reaction to Waugh taking over the team and if he's got it in him to get this team over the hump.
I mean, if it was from the start of training camp, I would say sure.
Yeah.
It's awfully tough no matter who the coach is, Sean. I mean, you know this. We've seen it. We saw Craig Berube take over the Blues and they went on to win the Cup. I mean, it does happen.
Right.
But that's the anomaly. That's not the norm. So I love the hire, to be perfectly honest. There's nothing against Lane, but not only is Patrick more of a fiery guy, and from a selfish perspective, even though I don't cover the team anymore, the answers that he gives is gold more often than not, which nothing against Lane. You didn't get that from Lane. So at least he's gold for the reporters in the room. And on top of that, this is a first class Hall of Fame all-time great who's probably sold some tickets over the last 3 or 4 weeks, which is obviously something that Scott Malkin is looking for sure. So I think this is a home run, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a home run over the next 2 months. This could take some time.
Yeah, and Brian, when you talked about it before, just you watching last night and seeing some of the games this year, just the fundamentals after Trotz left have gone out the window. Can you understand why this is happening? What have you seen from this group? Just how that could happen the way it's happened?
Yeah, I mean, what happened with Noah in overtime, that's just dumb. I mean, that's not anything he was doing wrong. That just whether it was the ice in overtime, being outside, the elements, whatever you want to call it. Noah Dobson has evolved into one of the better defensemen in the National Hockey League. It was just one of those things that happened at the worst possible time. For me, it's the mental stuff. I mean, the penalties that they took in the third period, which has happened how many times, Steph? You would know better than me. And the double-digit multi-goal leads that they've had in the third period. You guys remember Barry's first year. What were they, like 51-1 when leading after the second period?
Yeah.
So, and that's without Ilya Sorokin. I mean, Robin and Thomas had phenomenal years in 2018-19, but this is not what we've been accustomed to watching over the last 5 or 6 years. It's really perplexing. And it's perplexing because it's essentially the same group. I mean, there's been some changes here and there, but up front and on the back end, this is essentially the same group. So it's really hard to figure out what's going on there.
Yeah, for sure, Brian. And just to kick it back to, Patrick Waugh at the helm here, they've had some tough losses with him at the helm, and he's maintained a positive attitude. He's looking at everything that's going on with the team, and even though the disaster that was yesterday, he still came up to the podium for you guys, and he said, "Look, I know it didn't end the way we wanted it to, but I'm still looking at certain things here to take away that are good for this team, that are positive." And I guess the question is, how long can Patrick Waugh keep doing that until that kind of starts to fall on deaf ears, in the sense that, it's nice to take moral victories out of these losses and out of these games, but obviously the clock's ticking here, and if you're not getting results, how long is that going to not only wear thin on the fan base, but also on the players in the locker room? Because you can only go so long saying, we gave it a good try, but it didn't work out, and I just want to know maybe your thoughts on how that might affect the fan base and perhaps the players.
I'm with you. I think last night has to be the last one of those, Shawnee. I think if this happens again tomorrow or later in the week, I think you need more of a John Tortorella kind of press conference afterwards. Like, this is unacceptable. We can't go on like this. Guys have their heads up there. One of those Torts grade A press conferences that we've seen over the years, because Patrick's that kind of a personality.
Yeah.
He's that kind of a guy. And the fans aren't going to buy. The honeymoon's going to be over real soon if it didn't end last night. So now it's got to be, you have to tell the fans what they saw too. And look, there's certain things that the fans don't see. We've been saying this forever, whether it's on the ice or behind closed doors. That goes on all the time. But when you have a 4-1 lead and you blow it and you're losing over to, how many points has this team thrown away over the last 5 or 6 months? There has to be a press conference sooner or later where Patrick blows a gasket, and that's okay, because like you were alluding to, Shorty, enough is enough, and the fans have certainly had enough of this. So we'll see.
Well, I want to ask you about Scott Mayfield. Takes 3 penalties yesterday, but this year has been a real struggle after signing a 7-year deal. Just, I don't know if we've talked about it before, but your thoughts on the 7-year contract that he got. Obviously got the AAV down, but what the Honors really can do if Scott just doesn't find his game again.
Yeah, it's some of the contracts, whether it's Scotty, Pierre Engvall. I get that the longer you go on these deals, the lower the AAV goes. But you have to take into account, too, the further along we go here, the more the cap is going to increase. So to have to throw around these 5, 6, 7-year deals to guys, I'm not sure you have to do that. Having said that, there's really not a whole lot coming, guys. I mean, Lewis traded first-round pick after first-round pick. And I know for years and years and years, pre-Lou, I was all in favor of trading first-round picks to accelerate stuff. But now you've got an older team and, quite frankly, a slower team. So, and when you don't have a whole lot coming from the American League, I know they're bullish on a few prospects that they've just drafted in a year or two, but you're not going to see those guys anytime soon. So this is it for a while. So to get back to Scotty, Steph, again, I think it's been a really, really weird year for him, whether it's mental mistakes or even some of the stuff he's done in his own end of the ice. And to throw more gas on the fire, I mean, he's been one of their best penalty killers for a long time. And there he goes to the box late in the game with a 1-goal lead. He's had a really rough year, and how this is going to can we know he can play better than this? But the question is, if your question's about the contract, what is he going to look like in 4 or 5 years? I mean, that's got to be the scary part for everybody involved.
Yeah, over 30 already. And I just want to also talk about with Watt coming in. He said immediately during his introductory press conference he doesn't want to go into management. He would never say that. If he said that live during a press conference, Lou probably wouldn't have been happy with that. But I feel like when Trotz came in, he looked at the team and said, okay, I'm going to build a system to match the team. Whereas Watt's coming in with, you're going to play my system or you're really not going to play. So I guess for the deadline for the summer, how much do you think that Watt has a say in what players are sent out and what players are brought in?
Well, his opinion has to count for something, and I'm sure Lou is going to pick his brain about everything. But again, it goes back to, I mean, there's a couple of contracts coming up. I mean, obviously not Scotty or, Matt Martin contract, I guess, is up, right? Or does he have another year?
Martin's
I
up,
can't remember
Clutterbuck's up. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're going to lose a couple of guys, but as far as trading pieces away, I mean, there's not a lot there. Whether it's, I mean, do you really want to trade another first round pick to give this another crack next year? Like, you can't keep doing that. So Lou's got a lot of work to do. He's going to have to get very creative. But Patrick for sure is going to have to say, it's Lou's call. Lou runs everything over there. Let's be honest. But Patrick,
of course,
given his resume and the kind of coach that he is, and Lou obviously has a lot of respect for him, he's certainly going to take whatever advice that Patrick has here. Yeah,
you talk about value, and the Islanders don't have a lot of pieces that they would sell. Do you think there's any way that a guy like Brock Nelson's not on this team long term?
There's my Brock side. I mean, how do you move forward without Brock Nelson? I just don't. I mean, he'll probably get you some help, whether it's a pick or a prospect, because like we were talking about earlier, there's not a whole lot coming. But if you trade Brock, that means you're starting over almost, right?
Yeah,
and they're not in a position to start over. Not now with all the contracts that they have.
Right.
I can't envision him not being here. But it's Lou. Anything is possible. I would assume anything is on the table. I mean, he says it all the time. If I can find a way to make this team better, I'm going to do it. But I just don't know how you're a better team without Brock Nelson. I just don't.
Yeah, Brian, I think for better or worse, this is a team at worst that would maybe be in a perpetual retool to keep trying to build around the core that they have. Because all the contracts that you talked about. But, you and Stefen touched on the discipline with regards to Scott Mayfield. I went on a little rant earlier about Matt Barzal. And there's kind of an interesting dynamic there, right? Because, you need to hold your players accountable when they're irresponsible, when they're undisciplined, they're taking inopportune penalties. But then you also have your stars, right? You have your guys that you want out in the ice for 25 minutes a game. So how does a guy like Patrick Waugh approach something like that, where he needs to get a message across? Because as I was saying to Stefen, this is something that Matt Barzal has been doing for a while now, taking penalties at the wrong time, costing the team, ending up with goals against because the penalty kill can't keep the puck out. So how does Patrick Waugh handle getting the message across to a star like Matt Barzal?
Well, the respect factor is there. I mean, Matt raved about Patrick when he got the job, so I don't think that's an issue at all. Some of it's maturity. And I think if I'm Patrick, I'd be like, hey, remember when you guys went on those back-to-back runs to the conference final? You weren't pulling this stuff. I mean, if you want to get back to that, you have to play a certain way, and we need you on the ice. We can't be having you in the penalty box for 2+ minutes at a time. So I would be patient. I know Patrick is, like we were saying, he has to blow a gasket at some point, but he's going to preach patience at the same time. I think this is something fans have to be a little bit patient with. But the timing stinks because there's 28 games left and they're 4 points out of a playoff spot. But I'm curious to see what Matt does where he is 12 months from now when Patrick has a full year under his belt coaching this kid and he has a training camp with this kid. Yeah. He's not really a kid anymore, let's be honest. But there's a maturity aspect of this where he's got to be a leader. He's a leader on this team now, and he's got to act like it, and he can't be spending too much time in the penalty box. It's crazy.
Yeah, and you talk about these press conferences. I'm kind of waiting to see when Patrick Waugh is ready to unleash dark Patrick Waugh on everybody.
Probably after a question that I ask.
I hope so.
Let's hope, yeah.
If the Islanders are close come the deadline, I think we all can agree that they're probably buying. We don't think that he's going to sell. So, Brian, I ask you, when you look at this team, where do you think they need to, what's got to be the priority for an ad? If they're close and they're going to add. What's the priority?
Man, I don't. I want to say bottom six forward, but I know the fans are going to lose their minds. You know what? And I love those three guys. They look nothing like they used to. They just don't. And it's sad to watch because Barry called them the identity line. Fans used to love to see those three starting games and setting the tone right out of the chute. You're not seeing that anymore. Seeing Johnny Mac's son step in and do the job that he did for a game or two there, that was kind of fun to watch, because like we were saying, they're older and slower, and they need a boost somewhere. And I don't think they're going to get it on the back end. So maybe if they can get some help in the bottom six, and it sure would be nice if somebody scored an empty net goal at some point. What are we, February 19th? I mean, it's unfathomable that they have not. I mean, that would have helped yesterday for sure. But the fact that they have not scored an empty net goal, I think some of that is speed. They're not fast enough to pucks in their own end of the ice, and until that changes, I think you're going to see more of the same. It's just really sad because I was talking about earlier, to how much I love those three guys because I've known them forever.
I think
but all good things come to an end at some point. They might have to cut the cord. It's sad to watch sometimes.
I think the lack of empty net goals is a testament to just how hard of a time this team has getting out of their own zone.
Also, who's on the ice, too?
Holding on to the leads. Because if they were getting out of their own zone, they'd have, you get to the red line, you got a much better chance, logic would tell you that you can get that puck into the empty net. But it's just another testament to just how much they struggle to get the puck out of their own zone.
Yeah, my last question to you, Brian, is Oliver Wahlstrom. We've talked a lot about him, the ACL injury after having a career start or would have been a career year. Do you see Wahlstrom being on this team by the end of the season or to start next year?
The end of the season, maybe. Start next season, I would be floored, honestly. I think it's change of scenery time. Sometimes things just don't work out the way that you envision. I think it helps that he was one of two picks in that year, and the other pick is Noah Dobson, who we're saying is evolved into one of the best defensemen in the league. Oliver's got a phenomenal shot. He's a dynamic player. It is not working out here for whatever reason. Now, maybe that changes over the next month and a half under Patrick, and he's a top six forward here in September. But the way this is going, man, I just don't see it.
Yeah, it might be time to close the book on that. But Brian, been a while, but great to have you back on the show, man. Hopefully we'll have you on again soon. Thank you so much for your time, man.
Thanks for having me, boys. Have a good night.
You got it, bud.
Thanks, Brian.
That was Brian Compton of NHL.com, the managing editor over there. Always does a great job. And you got to hang with him a little bit over the weekend, right?
Yeah, well, I saw him at a practice, saw him at a game. So you see me twice now, which is probably way too much for Compton in 1 month.
Once
1
a
week
week is tough.
And then he comes on Zoom to be nice as well. So I have to apologize for him just having to talk to me 3 times.
And look at you doing it publicly. What a class guy you are.
And also shout out to Compton for plugging Floored Media without knowing.
Is that right?
He said Floored Media. So
nice catch. Well done.
Compton's good at that stuff.
Look at that. Yeah. All right. Well, great stuff from Brian. And now I'm going to tell you all about Main Street Board Game Cafe in Huntington Village on Long Island's North Shore. Games for sale and for open play. Food and drink, beer and wine, fun and friends. Bring the magic of phones down, eyes up, tabletop board games to your family. Our staff will help you find the right game from old favorites to the hottest new releases. We have everything from strategic to easy party games. Get off your screens for a night your family will remember. Looking for meetups to join? Our Magic the Gathering, Dungeons & Dragons, Lorcana, and organized play communities are welcoming for all. We also do parties and corporate events located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Go to mainstboardgamecafe.com for more information. Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd. Unplug your game. And Stefen, how do you feel about talking about some heroes now?
Would love to. I would love to talk about Brock Nelson, because before we get caught up in what Compton just said about playing a clip for you, which is what the question that Compton asked Nelson that got the whole pause.
True,
so
yes.
I'd love to play that for you again.
Play it for us.
Brian Compton asked Nelson, how do you kind of move on from this? And this is what he had to say.
This one feels like it's going to take a little bit right now, just given the circumstances of the day and the game and environment. So, take a little bit of time now to kind of just reflect and finish this day off, and then review tomorrow and think about some areas where we can kind of tidy up. And right now for us, it's next game is the biggest game of the year, so we got to get right back to it. We got to find a way to win and string together a few.
Again, they've had some pretty bad, brutal losses this year.
Sure have.
And Nelson talks a lot after losses, and he says the cliches because in that moment, yeah, obviously they're all mad and pissed, but it looked like he had seen a ghost. And Brian even said it like he doesn't believe the group believes. And yesterday was probably the first time where I thought the same exact thing, because seeing just the shock of this, can't believe this is happening. Like, how is this happening again? You don't see that a lot from Brock, and it was sad to have to hear him answer questions just the way he looked, because he looked just not done, but like, I'm over this. Like, this is ridiculous.
Would you say that previous to yesterday that the Sharks loss was the low point of the season? What was the worst loss leading up to yesterday?
Oh boy, we got
some to choose from.
We got time? No. Sharks one was probably brutal given that it was the Sharks.
Right.
If it's a really good team, they battle back.
Right.
That one was brutal. I mean, they're all brutal in their own way. That one was brutal. Yesterday just is brutal because you're outdoors.
Well,
the New York
point
Rangers,
is, you take your pick, whichever was the worst loss, whether it was the Sharks or what have you. Yesterday was that times 10.
Yep.
Just because of the stage it was on, the implications, everything that was surrounding that game, and to have it against the Rangers in that atmosphere, to have it on the national stage in front of 80,000 people. I mean, the sting is just so much heavier than any other game they probably lost this season. So, I mean, this might very well be, the lowest point. Not to say that it's the dagger that's going to, ultimately end their season, but it could be. It really depends now. You look at Brock Nelson's reaction. Can this team dig themselves out of, whatever rut they're feeling, right now after that loss and get it together and have it start with Pittsburgh tomorrow? I
feel like we repeat a lot of different things, but Tuesday for me is going to show what this team is made of. It's going to show, again, we can said it after every one of those losses, but given the already on a losing streak, going outdoors, first game against the Rangers, giving the need for 2 points, to blow it that way, this team either shows up or just close the book. Because if they come out, again, it's one thing to lose. We talk about it a lot, like you lose to San Jose, but if the San Jose Sharks played a really good game and there was a neck and neck game and they lose, again, at this point in the year, losses are losses, wins are wins. But, if they come out tomorrow and are lackluster, and it's more of what we saw against Calgary, it's like, why is Lou going to go? And, Lou is bought so many times because he believes that the team deserves, hey, you're fighting. Right. You deserve this. It's not like, making your dad feel bad, like you're not a good son or whatever, and you don't prove it, and you don't get the toy, whatever it is. It's like, not mad, but disappointed. But if they come out flat after a game like that, why is Lou going to waste assets to help this team right now win when he could save those assets, maybe use them at the draft, or maybe, like, again, I don't think Lou's in a situation where he's ever going to sell. I think he'd rather stand pat. But, last year they turned it up after a bad January to the point where Lou's like, he adds prematurely before the deadline, but he essentially said, you guys are playing well. Let me help you guys. Let's give you guys the best chance to go on a run and try to make it. Now, they don't show up in the playoffs and things go south, but if you come out flat tomorrow, you're just telling Lou that, why am I wasting assets?
Yeah, exactly. Like, this team has to show everyone, themselves most importantly, that they can come out of this and, be the veterans that they are and turn it around and go on a run. But yeah, look, at this point in the game, like, I don't blame fans for looking at yesterday and then coupling that with the season as a whole and being like, you know what, this might be it. You know what I mean? Hopefully they prove us all wrong. They did it a year ago, but time is running thin. And, we'll look at this week, and if they come out with, less than, 2 out of 3 wins, I mean, when do you just start putting a bow on the season saying, maybe this is it and it's time for Lou to shift his focus?
I mean, Tampa's huge because they are a team you are chasing. Pittsburgh, you're not chasing. You have to beat Pittsburgh for sure.
You got to win that game.
But take that game aside. That has to be a win. But when you go up against a Tampa team that you are, this point of the year,
at the very least, you got to beat Pittsburgh and you got to beat Tampa. And if you're having a good week, you take a point out of St. Louis. Yeah. Maybe you accept the loss to St. Louis, but I feel like they got to beat Tampa at home. They got to beat Pittsburgh tomorrow in Pittsburgh, and a road game against St. Louis against a team that's going fairly well with that wild card spot in St. Louis. Like, maybe that's the one you forgive if they can't get it. But or hey, crazy thought here. Maybe take all 3.
Yeah, and now it's time for Hero of the Week.
That's right, folks. When you hear this song, that means it's time for Hero of the Week, brought to you by Blue Line Deli and Bagels half-price hero, which this week is, once again, the B Comp Q, because Brian Compton was just on the show, featuring boneless ribs, barbecue sauce, pickles, and onions on a hero. Delicious, delicious. So, Stefen Rosner, let's get into our Heroes of the Week. Obviously, a couple of losses here for the Islanders, so we might have to get a little creative. But let's start with you. Who's your hero?
I was going to start with you, but sure, I'll start. It's Patrick Waugh, and the reason it's Patrick Waugh is he's preached accountability, and at practice, I believe it was Friday, 6 days in a row, it's hard to keep track.
Sure.
he unloaded on Pierre Engvall. Engvall's been benched a couple of times this year for fundamentals, and they were doing a drill where you had to fly out of the defensive zone, and he skated over the puck and didn't open up for a pass, and Patrick Waugh goes off. And we have seen Patrick Waugh hold players accountable, but you could hear a pin drop. And I'm not going to quote it because I don't remember exactly what was said. There were explicits thrown. He pretty much asked Engvall if he understood what he had to do. Engvall said yes, and he said, well, effing show me, or something like that. And it was, you were like, geez.
Hey now.
Yeah, and again, it's just, Waugh said he does one-on-one film with all of his players because he doesn't think in a group of all the guys, it makes sense to embarrass and pick people out. But I guess at that moment, Waugh said, we're not letting that fly. And it's also holding others accountable that don't do what Engvall just did. But for the first time since Waugh was here, he exploded during a practice like that on one player. And I thought that was so important. One, because Engvall is suspect to that a lot. But two, just, hey, I don't want to have to embarrass you, but if you can give me a reason to embarrass you, I'm going to do it.
We've certainly learned that Pierre Engvall is the most publicly disciplined player on this team, whether it is Lane Lambert or Patrick Waugh, just by getting some time in the press box, and now he ends up being the target of a public display here. So that's kind of interesting. I wonder if he's a guy who needs, well, clearly it seems to be the case, but I guess he's a guy that needs a kick in the ass to kind of do the right thing.
We've talked about that a lot. I know you're going to get to your hero, but he's one of those players that sometimes he just needs a kick in the butt to get going. My concern, if you're an Islander standpoint, is, like I said, I think Waugh at the end of the year is going to go to Lou and say, here's a list of players that I believe could play my system. Here's a list of players that can't, and here's a list of players that you should go get. And if Engvall is on the list of players he doesn't think that can play it, sure, he has speed. That's always an asset. But
do like something with that 7-year contract.
But like Scott, it's going to be very hard. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm not putting words in Waugh's mouth. Waugh believes that he can get Engvall back to being the playoff guy. But that's where contracts come into concern, that you're bringing in a coach with his system. He is not going to change what he wants to do. And you're either going to learn how to play in his system or you're not going to play. But when you have contracts and guys to 7-year deals, it's a tough pill for the Islanders to swallow. You have to automatically think after 1 year, like with Mayfield, do you have to think about buying a guy out like that after 1 year on a 7-year deal? I'm not saying that's going to happen or that was said, but that starts to go in your head. Even with Lee early in the year was saying, oh, he's had a tough start. They're going to have to buy him out. But with Waugh here, he has to start building for next year now. Like, if they're going to make the playoffs, great. If not, this is a trial run for finding out who's going to be the big players for next year. And if guys like Engvall are not part of the future going forward, the Islanders are going to have a really hard time moving him.
Right, and we'll worry about over the summer if we get there, whether Lou is able to do that or not. Oh, we'll make it. We'll literally make it to the summer, but we'll find out if they're in or out of the playoffs.
Tomorrow's not promised.
It's true. Wow, that's kind of dark.
Sorry,
but no, you're right. Chiming in there. All right, so we'll get to my hero. So I have a collection of heroes, and that is
You're my hero.
Thank you, Stefen. You're my hero too.
Don't lie to me like that.
It took a minute. So a collection of heroes here. I'm going with the fans at the rivalry tailgate yesterday. Despite the outcome of the game, had the pleasure of hosting an awesome tailgate with the Rangers Ed podcast yesterday, and we had a ton of people come out, Islander fans, Ranger fans. We had 20 fans, Islander fans come over from the UK to come hang out with us.
We have a big fan from the UK. We have a big fan that always watches.
Tristan. He's great. We just had a great gathering of people, everybody getting along, having a good time, good spirits, just all having fun. And I can't say enough about all the great people that I got to meet and hang out with and spend time with, and it was just a fun day, and it just hats off to them because we had a great time. And I have to say a big thanks to people like Donnie at Blue Line Deli, Gabe over at Oyster Bay Brewing Company, Suter's Sweet Treats, Main Street Board Game Cafe, One VIP Entertainment. They all got involved and helped us out, and it was just a great big day. I took the bus in with some of the fans there, and we had a good time rolling in and out, and just an awesome time. The weather broke right. You know what I mean? For mid-February, 40 degrees-ish was pretty damn good and some sun. So it was a lot of fun, a great time. So I just wanted to say thanks to everybody out there, all you fans out there that came and hung out with us and shared a great time with us.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I just have to ask, how was that bus ride back?
It was good. It was fine.
I guess at that point you guys were so hammered that...
No, it wasn't like that at all. I mean, if anything, there was one half of the bus that was a little, chippier than the other, and you had a little more quiet fan base. But the beauty of it is that everybody got along. There wasn't any sort of clown show. Nobody ruining the day for anybody. The whole rivalry thing. Like everybody just understood that it was just sports, and we're here for a good time. You know what I mean?
I didn't realize people could do that.
It's possible, but I'm sure we've all been at the Coliseum or the Garden. We saw some nonsense, happen over the years, but everybody was just great, and it took a little bit of weight off of our shoulders and the Rangers Ed guys because we started this thing, and there was one point where we looked at each other and we were like, what we're doing here, right? We got Ranger fans, Islander fans coming together, and we're gonna be helping them drinking some beers too. But it all went well.
That's
Everybody had a great time. So definitely a good trial run. Hopefully we can do something like that again. But once again, hats off to everybody that hung out. We had a blast.
That's all. No, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. We haven't used that word today.
No, we haven't. So what we're gonna do now is, assuming he has a take, Mr. Jake over there in the snake den. You got a take for us, buddy?
I do. But I want to give a quick shout out to Jay. He actually was willing to share this drink with me.
Is that right? For free?
Yes, it's a beach ball, and I know he likes them a lot. He didn't want to give them out, but
I know. I had to almost wrestle him for this one.
Yeah, right? And
yeah.
He's a kind man, and he gave us some. So thanks, Jay. Also,
he told me I could just have one.
Wait, so
what?
Odd man out?
Usually he has a lock on the fridge,
Showed me where they were.
but he gave you the combination today.
There we go.
Oh, look at that.
Also, another shout out to Jay for telling me that I speak with my hands a lot.
No, you don't. What are you talking about?
I know, like this. My mom brings it up too, so I apologize. That's just the Italian in me.
I'm sure Steph and I do enough distracting things here where you get over it, right? But Jake, it's fine, man. You're doing a great job. What's your take?
Thank you. So I know a lot of stuff went on this week. Yesterday didn't go as we wanted it to go, but I just wanted to say to fans out there, if you ever have the chance to go to a Stadium Series outdoor game, Winter Classic, do it. The atmosphere there was immaculate. It was crazy. You could really just feel the energy, and it was in a football stadium, but it wasn't like a football atmosphere. It was hockey fans. So having that atmosphere with 80,000 people, all hockey fans, getting together for a great show, amazing. Had the opportunity to go to both games. Great time. So, yeah, if you ever have the chance to go to any of those, do it. Absolutely.
Brings a tear to my eye. That was
beautiful.
emotional.
Well
I want to
said,
do a standing
Jake.
ovation, but it was not.
Well, that's what it's all about, the love of hockey. The
Yes.
love of hockey. And it was a great stage. And I will say, excuse me, having been to both of the games at Yankee Stadium about a decade ago, the football situation, the setup is much better than the baseball
The view
setup.
is much better.
Obviously, because it's actually the same shape. You don't have the awkward, V shape of a baseball stadium, like it's dead center. Diamond, yes. See, not a baseball guy or a football guy for that
baseball
matter.
guru.
Because it's funny, as Jake was saying, it wasn't really a football atmosphere; it was more of a hockey atmosphere. And I'm like, what's a football atmosphere? I'm like, what's the difference, right? But yeah, just you have everything dead center. I feel like the sight lines, were much better as well. I saw the Winter Classic at Fenway back in
That's
Boston.
sick.
It was cool to be there, but I tell you, because of the angle of the seats, like you barely could see anything. You couldn't see the puck. The boards themselves were blocking the puck, so you literally just saw guys skating back and forth, and you know where the puck was. But I would say yesterday was my best outdoor experience. Obviously, the slightly warmer weather helped, and excuse me, it was still effing cold. But yeah, I thought it was great, and look, the atmosphere was sick. I mean, the fact that you got 11 goals in the game yesterday and just having the fans going crazy and enjoying all that, even though it didn't end great. But yeah, Jake, great take, buddy.
Yeah.
Good stuff, man.
And
Yeah, it was a good day.
A great experience for everyone. So shout out to the NHL for that.
There you go. So that's Jake's take. And now I'm going to tell you about Isles Fix. Islanders Country, get your daily fix of Isles news, highlights, and analysis by subscribing to Isles Fix, the only Monday through Friday Islanders newsletter sent directly to your inbox. Sign up for free or become a paid subscriber for added benefits at ilesfix.substack.com. And with that, we will take one more break. We'll get into Questions Brewing, and then we'll wrap this thing up. So thanks a lot for tuning in to twitch.tv/hockey.ny. We'll be right back.
It's time for Questions Brewing. So go ahead, ask us a question.
I spent a lot of time trying to mimic it, you know? Yeah, and I feel like I got it down pat pretty good. So, Ed, Jay, how we doing? Jay unlocked the fridge for us today. What's going on, boys?
Jay's telling me to take the gum out of my mouth.
I was also
It is a
tell you
little
to take
obnoxious,
it.
honestly.
It was a little distracting.
To be chewing gum on the mic, I mean, that's pretty unprofessional, Ed.
Well, when I'm muting myself, but, you just tuck it in the corner when you're talking,
We're going to see how that goes. So, Ed, how's the chat tonight?
I've used this line before, but I'll use it again. If Stefen could use fantastic every week, I think I could say frustrations brewing.
Whoa, I don't use fantastic every week.
Yeah, you do.
I mean, no, Stefen, we've reached the point where you use the word more than I did in that one day.
Is it a verb or an adjective, though?
Let's not go there.
It's an adverb.
It's an adjective.
Adjective.
Yes. So, Ed, what do we got going on in there?
Well, frustrations brewing was my
Not
term
surprised by that.
a long time ago.
Yeah.
Frustrations brewing. But we'll start off with NZAB09 here.
Okay.
If Barzal or Mayfield doesn't see the bench, then why cannot talk about accountability for the rest of the season? Do you agree?
I mean, he can do whatever he wants.
Fact. True.
Yeah. Again, I
Get
wrote
the
about.
point, but
I'll plug an article here. Hockey News this morning wrote a Scott Mayfield article about what they could do with him because he's not going anywhere. We talked about it's very hard to move. How can Watt really just use him? I think for us, and Compton talked about it, it's just the basics, the fundamentals. My mindset for this is that you got to get Mayfield off the penalty kill. You got to let him just focus on the basics. Now, again, under Watt, the third pairing has been playing like a third pairing. Not going against the tough opponents, playing under 18 minutes or so a game, but Mayfield has to earn these minutes to me. And I think for Mayfield, you bench him. Let's go over this. You bench Mayfield, okay. Does Aho playing over Mayfield make your team better? Do you think Aho over Mayfield makes them better? With what Mayfield's job is, let's say the same roles they're going to throw Aho in that. Does that make them better?
Right, and to that point, at this stage in the game, if this is a team that's still trying to make the playoffs, again, the whole cliche cutting off your nose to spite your own face, like, to your point, I don't think it does.
Okay.
I don't think it does.
Agreed.
Right.
Moving a guy from the left side to the right side to play Bolduc in there instead of Mayfield, does that make your team better?
Probably not.
Okay, so for people saying, let's bench Mayfield, does that, sure, accountability is a thing. All right, so if we're going to bench Mayfield for what he did last night, so you're telling me, all right, let's just, Barzal watches the next game. You want to hold players accountable.
It's not gonna happen.
I get that.
Yeah.
You take Barzal. I know Barzal is a much bigger difference maker than Mayfield, but okay, you want to make a point, take Barzal out. Oh, we can't do that. He's that player. Pierre-Engvall came out, and look what happened every time he took and sat on the bench. That line was terrible. So, sure, does Mayfield deserve to hit the bench? Yeah, but does Mayfield coming out of the lineup make this team better with what they have? No. So why would they bench Mayfield? That's my take on that.
And you know what? These players got to hold themselves accountable.
For sure.
They're veterans. I mean, these guys have been in the league for a long time now. And that's the frustrating thing.
Yeah.
Is that you give more of a pass if it's a kid just coming up in the league. Like, everybody laughed when Matt Barzal stepped off the penalty box. Remember in his first game?
Yeah.
He stepped out. He goes right back in the box because, and everybody's like, oh, that's hilarious. You know what I mean?
He's going to have a terrible career.
It's not hilarious anymore. You start taking stupid penalties like that and you're costing your team. You're fighting for your life to stay in the playoffs and you're still costing your team with these calls and these guys got to look in the mirror a little bit, but I do think to a more reasonable point of how you handle a guy like Scott Mayfield is, you got to dial his minutes back.
And you could, if you want to limit his minutes and sit him, like, for example, he should not be out there in the final 2 minutes or final 3 minutes. He has to earn that back. Noah Dobson's the guy that we talked to that said, I want to be, like, he was on the penalty kill and everybody was hurt. I want to play in the PK. Okay, guess
what? Give him a shot. Give him a shot.
I just going back to my point is, I get the anger with wanting to send Mayfield to the sun. But if you don't have a replacement that's going to make this team, if this team was out of it completely, then Mayfield maybe, okay, fine, he sits. But for a team that wants to make the playoffs, there's no option, even if you're putting on your glasses that, oh yeah, he has to, there's no option that gives the Islanders a better chance to win. And this is a team game. You could hold players accountable. I guarantee Watt read him the riot act after the game. We don't see everything. I feel like people don't understand that.
Right.
When Lee says cliche things after a game, we're not in the locker room until probably 5 or 6 minutes after the game's over. All the raw, that has to be said is being said before we even get in there.
I'm glad you brought up Lee, though. Was this after the Seattle game where he got a little bit of crap from the fans because he gave one of those positive, responses after the game where they lose this game, they don't put out the best effort. And he's like, oh yeah, well, we got the point, we tried. And it's like, aren't we past that? And I kind of side with the fans on that. I mean, this is your captain. This is a guy who's got to be able to look into the camera every now and then and say, yeah, no, this was not a good game. We got to step our stuff up. And he kind of went the other way with it. And from a fan's perspective, I could see the disappointment there.
For sure. And I think, now, again, I have to remember back, but I'm pretty sure under Trotz, Lee was not like this. And I'm not blowing it, saying it's all Lambert's fault, but Lee, the same way Lambert after games, when they give up 6 goals, would say, well, our defensive structure is good. Like, it's great. We got a point.
Yeah.
Anders Lee's kind of fallen into the protect my teammates as much as I can. And what hurts Lee more is that when he says that, and then you go and talk to someone else like a Horvat, when Lee says, great to get a point, and Horvat says, that was terrible, we can't do that, a former captain who everyone wants to be captain anyway. And then for us media, like, people also don't understand, they don't think Lee talks as much, and we talk to Lee all the time. But for what we need to do for work, or we need to get you engaged in what we're doing, if Horvat has a better quote, we're going to use the Horvat quote. We might not even touch Lee's quote. If people think, well, Horvat's talking like a captain after every game, he talks every game, where's Lee? Where's Lee's? And, I'll apologize to the sense that maybe we have to do a better job of showing that Lee is still a voice every day because, again, we have to do what's best for us. And sometimes that means if Horvat says something that it'll resonate more with the fans, Lee might have said something that was really good, just not as good. And we have word counts, things like that, where we got to take the better quote. So I think us media, and I'll take that, as like, maybe we got to do a better job of showing you that Lee is at least talking. Because I think we hurt his... again, he's not helping himself, but we hurt...
Yeah, it's not your responsibility to make Anders Lee look good.
No,
he's going to do that on his own, one way or the other.
But the fact that people think that he doesn't talk, he's definitely talking. It just might not be what you want to hear, or might not be what fits the story that we're trying to do.
And Anders Lee shouldn't be speaking for the sake of the fans either.
Correct.
He should be speaking for the sake of himself and for the team. But after a loss like that, I understand why fans looked at that quote and were like, what's going on here? Where you are in the standings. You know what's been happening, the last 10, 15 games. Like, when are you going to step up and say, yeah, no, we suck tonight? Or, yeah, no, we should have put a better effort out there. And because, like, again, he wears that C. He's the general, so to speak. And, he's got to steer his team in that direction, too. I mean, because that should resonate with the players also when they see that quote, when he's like, hey, yeah, we got to get our shit together. We got to get our collective shit together and win some hockey games here. So I get that. I mean, look, that doesn't mean I've lost all faith in Anders Lee as a captain.
Nobody, by the way, should be doing that either, because you talk to everybody in the room and they love... I mean...
for me, it was just surprising.
That's a great segue into our next question from DTMR. Love the captain, but is it time to move on from Anders?
Also,
no.
We're not... It's so hard, because, again, I get the fans, and you take it at face value, but unless you're... First off, no fan... Everyone has opinions, but... Only person that matters to that question is at the end of the year when Wall goes into the room and says, do you guys still believe Lee should be the captain? And if all the players say yes, because he was picked as captain, Trotz tells the story all the time when he was here, he asked everybody on the phone, who do you think should be? Everyone said Anders Lee. I know things change over the years. And
I don't think we're anywhere close to Anders Lee's captaincy being put into question. And me even ranting about how I wasn't too thrilled with this quote the other day doesn't mean I'm a step away from saying the C's got to get stripped off of his chest. It was just in the moment for that game, it was disappointing. I don't think those were the right words to use because, it's almost insulting the intelligence of the fans, or at least I'm sure that's how they take it in the sense that, like, look, we're seeing what's going on out there.
Same thing with Lambert.
Exactly. Like, you guys didn't play a great game. You don't have to tell us or try to tell us that you did. I mean, yeah, you got a point, but what's that doing for us now? You got a lot of those loser points at this point. Like let us know what's really going on. And maybe he did feel good about that game, and he just told it like it was. Maybe that's how he felt. But I get it. But again, like, as far as, like, are we moving on from Anders Lee? Is it time to take the captaincy away? We're not there. He's still a guy that they respect tremendously in that locker room, whether you agree with all of his quotes or not. And I don't think we're anywhere near a controversy where we're wondering even this summer, like, he's getting a little older. He's not putting up 30 goals anymore. Is this a thing that's going to happen? Anders Lee's going to be the captain of this team for at least as long as he's...
Until he's done.
Yeah, until he's done, exactly. Or unless he really runs out this contract and he's not doing anything on the ice. That's when, if he's a guy that's just glued to the bench, the press box, that's when you have to look at that. But we're so far away from that, I wouldn't even think about it.
Next up from aisle 72. Shouldn't Lou look to somehow get McLean in the lineup as he looks like he's a good PKer?
That is a great question because I agree that McLean came up. He was excellent. And I got a lot of heat on social media in his first game against Chicago. I'm watching the game, and I think I tweeted out something along the lines of, wow, he's been amazing. And everyone's saying, he's done nothing. What are you talking about? When players do not stand out, when they are young players, that is usually a very good sign they are just doing the right thing. And for a guy that's grinded to get to the NHL, to go into the lineup and pretty much be Cizikas ass, filling lanes, getting on the forecheck, hitting, making the simple reads. That's what you need when you call players up. There's no time for the Islanders in these seasons to call somebody up who's not ready because they're going to know right away that they're not ready. And now it's like, oh, you need 10 games to figure it out. He figured it out immediately of just keeping it simple. He was fantastic. And it showed Lou especially that you could move one of your centers because McLean could come up and, again, no offense to the guys that are here, but $800,000 contract for McLean, who could play a bottom six shutdown center role. Do you need Jean-Gabriel Pageau here? Do you need Casey Cizikas? Again, I get those players and the value they have, but in a cap world where you could look at a player, I know Cizikas is, I think, 2.5 and his 800,000, but Pageau is not the goal scorer that the Islanders saw when they traded for him.
Right.
The faceoff numbers have gone down, and the penalty kill has been terrible. So when you could say, okay, we can move a $5 million guy off the books to establish and get something elsewhere, or we keep him when we have a guy that's making $800,000 who could do the exact same thing. It's a no-brainer. Obviously with no trade clauses. We're not saying that
McLean is Pageau yet or anything like that.
But a bottom six where the Islanders, when the guy you're paying $5 million a year is struggling to do exactly what you got him to do, when you have a guy that's making $800,000 who's younger, faster, you think you should try to move a guy like Pageau. Now, again, you have I think he has a 16-team no trade clause. Cizikas has, I don't know if he has any clauses, but McLean could also play the wing. So now if Wallstrom's not the answer, can you play McLean up there? Martin and Clutterbuck aren't here next year where you thought, okay, it's between Fasching and Gauthier. Now McLean's proven that even an $800,000 to a 1 point whatever million, that's still saving you money to have McLean play. So I think McLean will be up here at some point this year, and I think he has a very strong chance of making the NHL roster next year.
Oh, I agree. I think he has a huge chance of being on the team. Just with the simple math of Matt Martin and Kyle Clutterbuck coming off the books. I mean, I think a week or two ago we talked about the potential of them coming back or not, and maybe you get one, maybe you get both. I doubt it's both, but you never know because they're such a big part of that locker room. But I think there's definitely a door open for McLean to be on maybe a restructured fourth line for this team where you see him even with Cizikas on the wing or something like that, a Hudson Fasching in the mix there too. And maybe we just see a complete remodeling of the bottom six next year, but we are getting a little ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, but I do think too, to your point, if he plays the wing, whether it's the penalty kill or 5-on-5, you have an extra center on the ice. So that means he understands how to play a center game, could also take faceoffs to some of these. There's a lot of reasons why McLean being on this team would help this team, especially next year when certain guys probably won't be here.
Right. Ed?
Just to bridge onto that, Joey Pickles said, I'm seeing more fans asking for McLean or Maggio to be called up. Do we know how well the Bridgeport Islanders are taking to Roy Wild's system?
So I did ask a scout about what he's seen since I asked the scout that's gone there a couple of times, is he seeing they play a different way? And that was early, probably like a week or two into one. He hadn't seen a difference. But I caught a little bit of the Bridgeport game the other day, and you're starting to see a little similarities. Now, again, it's Kowalski's first year down there. To go back to your point about Maggio, there's an exclusive interview dropping tomorrow morning on the Hockey News. We spoke with Maggio. He's got 3 goals and an assist over his last 3 games. He's on fire. The goals have been, he had one silky goal between the legs, cut, backhand, top shelf. But what's been interesting to see when Maggio's come on now, because early in the year it was the points weren't falling, he was doing the right things. His speed is NHL speed. Forget the moves he's making in the offensive, like his shiftiness and him exploding through the neutral zone and cutting around guys. Maybe he's taking advantage of AHL defensemen, but the speed is what we saw in training camp where I talked to Pageau and Lee, and they both said Maggio is so easy to play with. And when they said that, I said, this guy's got a future. Whether he's got top 6 offensive talent, again, size might be an issue, but bottom 6 head down grinding role like McLean, Maggio is a coach's dream for just going to work. And he's one of those guys, like I thought like McLean, if Maggio got called up this year, there wouldn't be any time needed to get NHL 5-6 games to get used to it. Go in there, do the basic things. That's what Maggio does well. Sure, he had a ridiculous year with the winning OHL Player of the Year, which you can't mimic that ever. But I loved what I've seen from Maggio over these last 3 games. Confidence is a dangerous thing. But yeah, having guys like McLean and Maggio, McLean going undrafted, Maggio a really late draft pick, for those guys to find a way to make it onto this roster is huge for a franchise who doesn't have prospects.
Oh, for sure. And look, if the Islanders don't figure out a way to get it back on the rails here and get into the playoffs, probably wouldn't be surprised to see a couple of those guys come up and get a shot at the NHL. Ed.
Next up from John Smith over on YouTube. He says, no cap, no movable contracts, no quality prospects, 28 games left and trending downwards. Realistically, what can be done to salvage this season? Or is it more of the same?
They could win games. That's
the first thing that came to my mind. Win games,
we work too well together.
Yeah.
What can they do with? Well, they can create cap space. They can definitely. We'll see what happens with Bortuzzo. He was practicing before the Stadium Series. Everyone forgot about him. He's an LTIR. If they want to activate him, they got to clear 600.
You know, he's the one guy you didn't mention saying who could come in for Mayfield. He plays the right side.
I wrote about it this afternoon, actually, and I just didn't mention it. My mindset was that would be the only guy if he.
I feel like he's the one guy I'd be willing to give a shot. He looked all right.
Big body. At the end of it, before he got hurt, he was getting people were blowing by him on the rush. But again, he's not a fast guy, but big body defenseman. I just for me, if you're benching Mayfield in year 1 of a 7, again, politics aside, you have to do what's best for the team. Different though. I feel like the way they've handled Mayfield's been here for a while. Engvall's a newbie for this squad, but yeah, for me, I didn't mention him because Bortuzzo's still hurt. But if Bortuzzo's ready to go, one, you have to move Aho, Bolduc, or Wahlstrom, and they're not going to move Wahlstrom because that would bring them to 12 forwards. So they're not going to cut that. So it'd be Aho or Bolduc. It seems like loves Bolduc. So we're probably coming to the end of Aho on the Islanders roster if they don't waive Bortuzzo, but I think they'd waive Aho before that. So yeah, but Bortuzzo would be a fit to come in for Mayfield if they decide to go that route and if Bortuzzo's ready. But going back to the point about how can they salvage a season, finishing games. I mean, we've talked about it all year. There's no reason you don't get 2 points yesterday. And going forward, they need to get as many points as possible. This team is talented. Everyone just thinks they're not. You look at all the blown leads. If they don't blow 60, 70% of those leads, they might be ahead of the Rangers in the playoffs and are a great team that I don't think they'd ever be considered elite. I don't think the Islanders could get McDavid and they'd say, oh, this team's elite. But they are such a talented team.
If they weren't talented, they wouldn't be able to get those leads to ultimately give up, right?
Yeah, they'd be done in the first period.
Right. They're scoring goals. They just have had just a tremendous job of trying to close these games out, and we're still trying to figure out why that is. But yeah, probably not the answer you're looking for. But the best thing this team can do is literally just try to win and collect points. I don't think there's any cure-all coming down the pike here, whether it's somebody coming up from Bridgeport or a deal we see coming out of nowhere from Lou Lamoriello. I mean, not to say that he might not do something, especially if they give him a reason to. But I don't think there's going to be some snap of the finger and everything magically falls into place from something from the outside. I think this is just the team's got to find it within or they don't. And then they got bigger decisions to make this summer.
People have to remember, too, let's pretend Gensel wasn't hurt. Fans were calling for Gensel. One player does not fix every issue this team has. Great. First off, the offense has been pretty good. How many goals they put up last night? I mean, this team can score goals against elite goaltending. But even if they got a defenseman or got a top 6 forward, the players that are making the mistakes are here long term. It's not like these guys one guy comes in here and they just fundamentally figure it out. Guess who has to get that person the puck? Mm-hmm. You got to make a fundamentally strong play to get whoever you're bringing in the puck. So one player doesn't fix this team. If this team's going to make the playoffs, it's going to be a look in the mirror, and everyone on this team has to be better. It's a team sport. This isn't NBA where you go get LeBron James and you're bookmarked to go to the NBA Finals. You could bring Sidney Crosby into this team, and look at Austin Matthews and the Maple Leafs. Perfect example. You take Austin Matthews off this team, they're a bottom 5 team in the league. You have Matthews on this team right now, and they're falling. Like, they're not playing well. Mm-hmm. One player that's going to score 80, 90 goals this year. That team could still miss. We see McDavid all the time. He hasn't won a cup. Greatest player, probably the most talented player to ever play the game, and he hasn't sniffed a Stanley Cup final.
Fair point, Stefen. Ed, what do you got?
Wow. MJ Beckman. Wow, damn. MJ Beckman, if you bought the Stadium jersey, can you ever wear it again after yesterday? And if you hadn't bought one, would you ever?
Well,
someone who bought one.
I do happen to own one, and I
Who'd you get?
Really like it. I went with a blank.
A blank?
I'm a blank jersey guy. Yeah, for the most part.
I feel that.
But yeah, I get it. I get the question. I know it's a bit of a fun one, and I certainly wouldn't blame anybody for not wanting to wear it after what happened yesterday. Mine will remain in my possession. I don't wear a lot of jerseys all the time, but yeah, I get it. But I mean, it's still, if you like the jersey, if it's a nice jersey, keep it around.
What I will say is, even if the Islanders had won, I was thinking, maybe they'll wear it during the.
I'd like to see them wear it again.
They are not after yesterday. that jersey was thrown in the garbage, and Lou said, if I ever see that again, someone's getting killed. Like, there's no way they're wearing that in a game. There's no way.
You think it's toast?
I don't think they were going to wear it. I don't think Lou would allow them to wear it regardless. But after, how can they put that back on for a game? I don't see it after what happened yesterday. I don't even think it was part of the plan. I don't think they wear them at all. And if they do,
I guess I get that, but I don't know. For me, it's just I understand. But I wouldn't be like, oh my God, why are they wearing this again?
Yeah, I would be incredibly shocked if we see that being worn at a home game.
Okay.
John Price 15X. Who won the hockey game versus Rangers Ed podcast Saturday?
Oh, I love this question. And I'm
going to guess we won. Yeah, you didn't tell me anything about the game.
Yeah. We destroyed those guys. we stopped keeping score. And I almost hope that Rangers Ed isn't listening because I don't want to hurt their feelings. But yeah, we took it to them. Team Orange won. We took them down. It was a lot of fun, though, and in all seriousness. And look, it was a laid-back game. We were just having a good time.
Oh, it was not laid back for you guys. Put the pedal on the gas, and you...
We ran the score up a little bit. It's true.
Did you do a 3-pass rule at some point, or no?
Oh, what is that?
Oh, it's when you go up by a lot. It's usually kid games. Like, if they go up by, hey, guys, you have to make 3 passes before a shot.
That would be a little more embarrassing.
What?
No, we didn't do that. We just kept running up the score.
Oh, nice. That's what honestly, that's what's needed nowadays.
Listen. I mean, you got to keep the rivalry going somehow, right? And, they offered us a challenge. They said, hey, how about Rangers Ed versus Hockey Night in New York? And Hockey Night in New York accepted, and we took care of business. So, yeah, Hockey Night in New York took the win.
Nice. Next up from Phlebotinum 1. Didn't we all know this team had a rough future coming after the success we had in the successive years? Being 1 game and 1 goal away one year and being 1 goal away the next year from the finals. We sacrificed the future for it. That's how it goes, although it's a bit sooner than I thought for the decline. Some players just forgot how to play.
I definitely agree with some players just forgot how to play. That being said, it's very hard to just forget. Again, that's why I asked Compton the question, because they need to do a 30 for 30 on this. Is what happened?
Yeah.
It's a great question. I think, not to go at this person who asked the question, but I love people on social media that go, I've been saying for years this was going to happen. I was right. Like, I don't know what people get out of that anymore.
Sure.
To be like, oh, I told you guys they should have done this. I was right all along. But
yeah, stop it. Like, you have to go for it. You can't play every season in fear of what might happen in the future. And let's be honest here. Did anybody going into that summer, especially...
Which summer, sorry?
What's that?
Which summer?
I'm getting there.
Oh, sorry.
Especially with John Tavares leaving the team on July 1st. You have Lou and Barry coming in. Did anybody see 2 semifinal appearances coming from that team? Now, granted, everybody was probably feeling good about it and excited about it. Lou's coming in, Barry's coming in, but they just lost John Tavares, and they missed the playoffs with him on the team the year before. So let's not say anybody had a crystal ball here. All right, but Lou bet on this team. He got them to within a game in the 3rd season. 2 of the best years of my Islander fandom since I've been a wee lad, right? And look, they didn't make it to the top of the mountain, but they came damn close. And I'll say it a million times: if they had gotten past Tampa in that 2nd year, they absolutely would have wiped the floor with Montreal. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. But, again, look at it this way. If Lou didn't go for it in those years, we wouldn't even be, celebrating what happened in those years, too. I mean, look, they didn't make it all the way, but those were damn fun years to watch, especially after all the garbage that we saw with this franchise in the decades leading up to that. So, yeah, there is a cycle to this. You're going to go for it. You're going to get rid of your draft picks, and there's going to be some lean years. And maybe this is the start of the decline into that. Maybe it's not. Maybe they retool a little bit and they get back on track and they can win some hockey games. Hopefully that's the case. But yeah, this could be it, and hopefully with look, it starts at the top. They have great ownership at the top. Whether Lou's still the manager or not when this stuff happens, hopefully they bring in somebody who can do it. But this is the nature of the game. 1 out of 32 teams win the Stanley Cup. They went for it. I have no problem with it. And yes, we knew that eventually some suffering was coming, and maybe this is the start of it. Maybe it's not.
By the way, this team is more talented than the teams that went back-to-back to the Eastern Finals. Just going to throw that out there. Again, potential and execution, two different things. This team, watching them play hockey, is much more talented than those two teams were. Now, again, the players haven't executed the same defense. Like, obviously, look at those teams and how good they were defensively, but talent-wise, especially offensively, this team blows those teams out of the water, which is more concerning because if they could just have played better defensively, where this team could be in the standings now.
Right.
It's disgusting a little bit.
It's disgusting. It's frustrating. It's a lot of negative adjectives. But, look, maybe they'll get it together in these this last bunch of games here. Maybe they don't, and we'll see where it goes. But I know we give a lot of long-winded answers to these questions, so I want to get at least one more in because, Ed, you said we had a lot.
Yeah. So I guess, these two questions are kind of similar. So I guess we'll go with Andremi. Does Lou survive if this team falls apart and misses another playoff? Don't see how the owners can justify it to fans.
I don't think Lou remains if they miss the playoffs, and whether that's a firing or not, I think publicly it's going to be Lou has decided to step down. But if he has a multi-year contract, then maybe not. But I just feel like, you have an unsuccessful season after betting on Lane Lambert and it not working out. But like it brings all the other questions about what do they do with Patrick Waugh if they bring in a new GM. That's all things you got to worry about. Maybe him getting the blessing to hire Patrick Waugh means he is sticking around regardless. But I do understand at the very least it might be a tough sell to fans if they miss the playoffs this year and Lou Lamoriello still at the helm.
Now, the Islanders go on an absolute run right now and still miss the playoffs because of where they are in the standings. So I do think it depends on how this season goes, but you make a great point. New GM comes in, they may want to remove Waugh. I could very much see Lou coming back, but like we saw with Kekalainen just now in Columbus, that if next year starts and these same things are going and the roster's not doing well by November, then you see a GM change. But it's very tough to tell because we don't know Lou's contract, even if it is his final year. Like, I think Waugh at some point is going to end up becoming the general manager of the Islanders, and Benoit, my belief is that Ben will eventually become the head coach of this team.
Interesting.
That's just my mindset.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I do think that despite what Patrick Waugh might have said publicly about I have no interest in being a general manager, like, I don't think it's unreasonable to think that this is the guy they're lining up to replace.
How to lose
Lou
your job in 10
when
seconds.
It's time to go. Like, because again, Patrick Waugh's a name. We know in the past he was interested in being in management. He had leadership, and ultimately led to his demise in Colorado. But he was trusted to help out on that. I don't remember his official title, but I know that Sakic was leaning on him for managerial decisions as well. So, maybe we're kind of already seeing the baton long-wise being passed here to Patrick Waugh if and when Lou's ready to finally call it quits.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting to see what happens. Very interesting.
So that'll do it for Questions Brewing. Again, as always, we're sorry if we didn't get to your questions, but we appreciate you throwing them out there. Hopefully we'll get to them next week. And with that, we are going to wrap this thing up. So we want to start with a huge thanks to Brian Compton of NHL.com for joining us. Always a pleasure to have him on the show. And of course, a big thanks to our sponsors, starting with Blue Line Deli and Bagels, located at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington and 217 Carlton Avenue in East Islip. Check out the menu and order online at BlueLineDeli.com. Also, a big thanks to Main Street Board Game Cafe, located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Find out how to unplug your game at MainSTBoardGameCafe.com. Also, a big thanks to Razor and Kniff Attorneys at Law. Nobody likes going to court, but hey, if you have to, call 516-742-7600 for a free consultation. And a big thanks to A1 VIP Entertainment, your one-stop entertainment concierge for sports, concerts, Broadway, and more. One call does it all at 516-787-0048. And of course, folks, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe if you haven't already. Tell your friends. Spread the word about Hockey Night in New York. Stefen Rosner, where can we find you on social media and your wonderful writing skills?
I appreciate that. You can follow me on Twitter at Stefen_Rosner, STEFEN_Rosner, the Hockey News Islanders Rangers, NHL.com.
there you go. You can follow myself on Twitter at Shawnee Hockey. You can follow the show at Hockey Night NY on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere else on social media. And folks, want to tell you we got another event coming up. March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, the Islanders will have a chance to rebound against the New York Rangers after what happened yesterday. They will be going into Madison Square Garden at 1 o'clock for a St. Patrick's Day bash. We will be throwing a viewing party at RJ Daniels and Rockville Center. Yes, we will be back, and I know Stefen will be covering the game in MSG. So I got a special guest co-host coming in, a man known as Mr. Michael Carver. You probably know him from the Aisle Seat podcast and now of Sports Grid. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Please come down to RJ Daniels and Rockville Center. We will have more information for you, but that's going to be a lot of fun. So definitely keep on the pulse for that. So for Stefan Rosner, for Ed, for Jay, for Jake the Snake Radonis over there, I've been Sean Cuthbert, and we have been Hockey Night in New York. Have a great rest of your Monday night.